In the previous lesson, we have created one more composable function, which is responsible for calculating percentage of the total amount of tracked time for all activities, and that percentage is displayed in this component, the header progress. So let's open up this component in our editor. So right here we're calling the composable function useTotalProgress to get percentage value that we are about to display. And now let's go to this function useTotalProgress. And in here, let's take a look at this computed property, total tracked seconds. There is a chance that we can improve readability of this property, because if we take a look more closely at the closure of this reduce method, we will notice that in here we're doing a couple of different things. Firstly, we are calculating tracked time for individual activity, and then we're trying to find the total amount of time tracked for all activities. So why don't we split these two operations into two different steps? So just to make it clear what I mean by that, let's just take a look at the computed property total activity seconds to complete. So right here, as we can see, we're doing a couple of operations, but these operations are kind of split by two individual steps. Firstly, we're mapping over the array, and then we're calling method reduce on the new array to calculate the sum of the elements of this array. So let's try to apply the same approach in our case. The first step will be to call method map, and this method will be responsible for mapping tracked amount of time for individual activities into a separate array. And we are doing this by calling calculate tracked activity seconds function, and then using this ternary expression. And eventually, we're going to return the result of this expression from this closure. And potentially, it will let us improve readability of the method reduce more. So in here we only have to sum up total with the amount of tracked seconds of each tracked activity. And this way, we will be able to find total amount of time tracked for all activities. So this way we haven't changed any logic, everything still works as before. So just to be sure, let's open up the browser and test this quickly. So I'm going to start tracking time for the coding activity, and we will make sure that the percentage and the top right will be increasing. So as you can see, it's working. Let's go back to the editor and take a closer look at this ternary expression. So basically by using ternary expression in here, we're just trying to find the minimum value out of these two, the tracked seconds variable and value of the property seconds to complete. And then we pick the least value and return from this closure. So we can actually rewrite this in a more concise way by calling mathMin on the math object and passing these two values. And then this method is basically going to return us minimum value. So we were able to simplify this a bit, and this way we can even avoid creating this variable tracked seconds by basically inlining this expression in the method min, like so. Let's get rid of this variable, and now that we have only one expression inside this closure of the map method, we can return it directly without using return keyword. And let's also get rid of these curly braces. So one more time, check it out. If we haven't broken anything by doing this refactoring, let's start tracking time for the coding activity and make sure that the percentage will be increasing in the header. And as you can see, it does. Now look at the name of this computed property, total tracked seconds. This property stores amount of tracked seconds of all activities. And in general, this composable total progress is responsible for calculating percentage of all activities at once. But if we switch over to the progress composable, and this composable is responsible for calculating percentage for a particular activity. And here we have almost identical property called tracked seconds. But to make it more explicit that this computed property stores seconds of a particular activity, let's just rename this property on tracked activity seconds. And then wherever this property is used, it is used only once inside progress item component. So we also have to rename the reference of this property on tracked activity seconds. Let's continue and work on the progress scale. So let's just see how this progress scale is growing, and every second it is going to update property weights of this progress scale. But once it reaches 100%, it doesn't stop at that point, and the width is growing more. But we don't actually need it to grow over 100%, so let's see how we can avoid this. Inside the progress item component, I'm going to change this syntax on the object notation, where I'm going to specify an object with only one key width, and the value will be different now. We're not going to use simple percentage anymore, but instead we're going to pick the minimum value out of these two, percentage variable and 100% constant. And that means when our percentage will become greater than 100%, we're still going to use 100% for the width of this scale. So let's scroll up and add an import statement for the 100% constant. And now in the browser, if we start tracking the time again, and let's watch how the width of this scale it will be growing. And this time we will see that once width reaches 100%, it will stop here and will not grow more. There is actually no visual difference, but still this improvement is worth doing, since it doesn't take much effort. And the final improvement that I would like to do in this lesson is actually making this scale growing smoothly. And to do so, we just have to apply one Tailwind CSS class to the div which represents the progress scale. I'm going to use array notation to assign these classes, and the class that we need, which is going to animate some CSS property called transition all. And now the difference will be visible. One more time, let's start tracking the time, and on the progress page, let's make sure that this time, this progress scale will be growing smoothly. As we can see, it worked. So that's it for this lesson, and let's continue development in the next one.